Iran deal deadline expires. Trump cuts Korea drills. Indonesia quake toll rises. And Ukraine drones strike Russia. Greetings, humanity. Let's rock the news. We cover the world's headlines, but first, a deep dive into the most important story in the world today. Dateline, Washington, D.C. The 60-day deadline under the June Memorandum of Understanding between the United States and Iran expired without any final agreement to end the war or resolve disputes over Iran's nuclear program. President Donald Trump had signed the interim deal in June and promoted it as a path to peace that would reopen the Strait of Hormuz and bring economic relief. Both sides now stand further apart than they did 2 months ago and continue to trade accusations of violations. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Esmail Baghaei told reporters in Tehran that the 60-day period is no longer relevant. He said that the United States committed gross and widespread violations of the memorandum shortly after it was signed on June 18th, and that no substantive negotiations ever began. Baghaei stressed that Iran does not adjust its policies under external pressure or deadlines and will decide based solely on national interests and security assessments. He added that Iran's armed forces remain fully vigilant and ready to respond to any threats. The memorandum, often called the Islamabad Understanding, declared an immediate and permanent end to military operations on all fronts, including in Lebanon. It required the United States to lift its naval blockade within 30 days, allowed Iran temporary oil sales under waived sanctions, and launched talks aimed at a final deal within 60 days that could be extended by mutual consent. The final deal was supposed to address Iran's nuclear stockpile through on-site downblending under International Atomic Energy Agency supervision, terminate all sanctions on an agreed schedule, and include a reconstruction package of at least $300 billion. In practice, the arrangement collapsed within weeks. President Trump declared the agreement over on July 7th after Iranian strikes in the region. Tehran accused Washington of continuing attacks on infrastructure and failing to fully remove the blockade. Talks, when they occurred at all, focused narrowly on reopening the Strait of Hormuz and releasing frozen Iranian assets, rather than the broader nuclear and sanctions issues. Intermediaries, including Pakistan and Oman, have relayed messages, but Iranian officials say direct negotiations stopped back in June. On Friday, President Trump raised the stakes further, telling supporters in New York that the United States would soon claim the Strait of Hormuz as its own territory once Iran is defeated. He said Iran is being very badly defeated and that the waterway would become American territory. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has warned of new economic measures against Iran that have never been seen before. Shipping through the strait has already slowed after tanker attacks, raising global oil price concerns and disrupting commercial traffic between the Persian Gulf and the Sea of Oman. The war itself began back on February 28th, when the United States and Israel launched strikes aimed at Iran's navy, missile sites, and nuclear facilities. Iran responded by effectively blockading the strait and firing on regional targets, its own neighbors. The conflict has now entered its 6th month with no clear off-ramp. Iranian officials continue to insist the memorandum represented the end of the war rather than a temporary ceasefire, while American officials describe ongoing economic attrition as the path forward. Analysts note that both sides appear prepared for a protracted campaign that could tip back into open warfare at any moment. Global markets are watching closely, because any renewed fighting would threaten one of the world's most critical energy choke points. Regional partners have urged extension of the talks, but neither capital has signaled willingness to restart formal negotiations. As of Monday, the deadline has passed, the memorandum is effectively dead, and the risk of escalation remains high. In this observer's opinion, it is surely a matter of time before economic pressure and a military blockade force the surrender of Iran if its leadership was rational. They are not. In the end, they will have to be removed, one way or another. I'm Robert Gardner, using GROK each weekday to truthfully summarize the news. And I give you my opinion, too, and I make sure you know the difference between my opinion and the facts that I present. We review a roundup of the most critical reports in the world right after this. God with Us, the story of Jesus, blends the Gospels into one inspired narrative. Divided into daily Bible studies, this book presents the story of Jesus, from his birth to his ascension. Find God with Us by me, Robert Gardner, at Amazon.com. Dateline, Washington, D.C. President Donald Trump has ordered Secretary of War Pete Hegseth to substantially reduce the annual Ulchi Freedom Shield joint military exercises with South Korea that began yesterday. He cited his very good relationship with North Korean leader Kim Jong Un and the high cost paid largely by the United States and Seoul's refusal to join Iran denuclearization efforts. South Korea said the drills will proceed as scheduled while reviewing this directive. Dateline, Ruteng, Indonesia. The death toll from Saturday's magnitude 7.7 earthquake on Flores Island has risen to 54, with 135 injured, more than 1,300 homes damaged. About 5,000 people remain in temporary shelters as aftershocks and landslides hinder aid delivery during the Indonesian Independence Day celebrations. Provincial authorities have declared a 14-day emergency response. Dateline, Bogota, Colombia. The death toll from last week's magnitude 7.4 earthquake has climbed to at least 289, nearly 4,000 injured, and more than 200 still missing. President Abelardo de la Espriella has asked President Donald Trump to suspend tariffs to support the recovery and has thanked the United States for $26.5 million in aid. Thousands of homes remain destroyed in the western cities of Colombia. Dateline, Moscow, Russia. Ukraine launched one of its largest drone assaults of the year overnight, with Russian officials reporting 822 drones intercepted, including more than 600 aimed at the Moscow region. At least 7 people were killed, and a major retail warehouse belonging to Wildberries was set ablaze. Russian air defenses claim to have neutralized the bulk of the incoming swarm. Dateline, Bucharest, Romania. A Spanish F-18 fighter jet on a NATO air policing mission shot down a suspected Russian drone early yesterday after it entered Romanian airspace from Moldavia near the city of Galați. Authorities confirmed the interception about 24 kilometers north of the city. The incident marks another airspace violation that is linked to the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Dateline, Beirut, Lebanon. Israeli airstrikes in southern Lebanon killed at least 11 people. According to sources, at least 3 children were involved, and a senior Hezbollah commander, identified as Abu Hassan Allah of the Radwan force in Ansar, marking the deadliest attacks since the June truce. The Israeli military said that the strikes targeted Hezbollah infrastructure after an attack wounded 3 Israeli soldiers. Lebanese President Joseph Aoun called the attacks a clear message ahead of peace talks with Israel. Everybody is tired, fatigued literally to death by the Hezbollah terrorist organization that is funded by Iran. Dateline, Jerusalem. United States envoy Jared Kushner met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu after earlier talks with Hamas leaders. The discussion focused on advancing a 15-point United States-backed roadmap to move the Gaza truce forward. Hamas has reaffirmed its commitment to disarmament and demilitarization under the plan. As this observer observes, it all depends on who you're actually talking to. Dateline, Honolulu. Tropical storm Lala skirted Hawaii's Big Island without making landfall, but still swept about 100 homes from their foundations and damaged bridges and utility lines. Nearly 130,000 customers lost power at the peak. The system has since weakened, while recovery assessments continue across the island. Dateline, Indianapolis. At least 7 people have died in historic flooding across Indiana after days of heavy rains left rivers far over their banks. Firefighters rescued nearly 100 people and dozens of pets. President Donald Trump has approved emergency federal funding for rescue and shelter costs as power outages are affecting tens of thousands. Dateline, Mecca, Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Pakistan have formalized the Mecca Joint Defense Agreement, under which an armed attack on any one of them is treated as an attack on all. President Donald Trump welcomed the pact as a bold, big first step among the 3 Sunni Muslim partners. The agreement aims to strengthen collective deterrence amid regional instability. Dateline, Chiba, Japan. Flood damage reports from last week's torrential rains continue to grow, with about 1,300 homes flooded and 10 people confirmed dead. 1 person remains missing. Local authorities are still assessing the full extent of the destruction 3 days after the record rainfall. Dateline, Balen, Belgium. Firefighters backed by military helicopters and farm tractors are battling a record wildfire that has scorched a nature reserve in eastern Belgium. A separate blaze on a Greek island has already killed 2 people. Authorities have ordered evacuations as fires spread across Europe under dry summer conditions. Dateline, Tehran. Iran has announced a $30,000 bounty for anyone who kills or captures American soldiers. This is marking a sharp escalation in rhetoric as the interim peace framework collapsed again. The offer signals a shift toward explicit targeting of United States military personnel. Officials framed the measure as a response to ongoing pressure. Once again, and this observer cannot state it enough, the regime in Iran must be removed. As far as this observer is concerned, the only terms that should be negotiated are unconditional surrender. Dateline, Patna, India. A stampede at a Hindu temple in Bihar state killed 7 people and injured more than a dozen during a large religious gathering. Police and emergency teams are still determining the exact cause of this crush of people. Local authorities have ordered an investigation into crowd management failures. Dateline, Kryvyi, Ukraine. A Russian missile strike hit an ArcelorMittal steel plant in central Ukraine. This killed 2 workers, injured 13 others. Significant damage reported to production areas, causing partial operational disruptions. The company said that it will move quickly to restore this facility. Dateline, Taipei, Taiwan. Taiwan has detected 11 sorties of Chinese People's Liberation Army aircraft, along with 8 naval vessels and 2 official ships operating around the island through today. The activity continues a pattern of sustained pressure in the Taiwan Strait. Defense officials are monitoring the movements closely. Dateline, Seoul, South Korea. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung has proposed formal talks with North Korea aimed at finally ending the technical state of war that has persisted since the 1950s armistice. The offer comes as joint exercises with the United States are facing reductions. Pyongyang has not yet responded publicly. Dateline, Budapest, Hungary. A bus carrying Polish tourists returning from a pilgrimage overturned on a motorway near Mezőkeresztes, killing 12 people and injuring at least 10 others. Police say the driver likely fell asleep at the wheel. Investigators are examining the circumstances of the high-speed crash. Dateline, Manila, in the Philippines. The Habagat monsoon has brought heavy rains and flooding across Luzon, including Metro Manila, prompting yellow rainfall alerts, multiple road closures, and widespread class suspensions. Authorities continue monitoring water levels as residents face disrupted travel and potential further downpours. I thank you for listening. Please join me tomorrow to once again GROK the News. I'm Robert Gardner. Godspeed and God bless.